I know, everyone's enthusiastic about podcasting, but here's the reality. It's not something that you can just dip your toe into. You have to go all in because it's high maintenance and you have to commit to a regular schedule. And here's the reality. I spend nearly every weekend on the podcast. And I still haven't explored how to monetize it because I just haven't had time to figure out how to do that.
Hey everyone, I am Lee McKnight Jr., the VP of Sales for RSW US, outsourced business development for ad agencies of all types. This is Cut to the Chase. It's the RSW interview series. We deliver brief but impactful views from ad agency principals, business development leaders on growth strategies and the challenges that come with them in today's weird, evolving landscape. And so this is Kelly Callahan-Poe, president of Williams Whittle in DC. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Lee. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to have you. We traded a fair amount of emails during the pandemic.
We did, yes.
You were incredibly helpful. Thank you.
Ditto.
Yeah, it was, well, we won't talk about that too long because, but you were really helpful. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get you in on this series sooner than later. So thank you. And we're going to get into the agency. I've got some other questions because you are crushing it on the content side of things. And that's definitely what I want to talk about today. Absolutely. Oh, it's
hard.
Yes, you do. I mean, and you're doing a lot. So let's get into that. But before we do, we've got some rapid fire questions. Now, you are aware this is going to happen, but you don't know what these are, audience, just so you know this.
Go for it.
And these are kind of either or. We'll go pretty quick, but I might stop, especially the third one, because I'll just do it. So first one, ready?
Yes.
Colorado Buffaloes or Kentucky Wildcats?
Oh, come on, the Buffaloes.
I knew you were going to say that.
Trick question.
I know it's our respective alma mater. So I was, just getting warmed up. Okay. Second one, completely random. Brady Bunch or the Partridge Family?
Brady Bunch.
Okay. All right. I won't say where I go on that one. This is the shot in the dark. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
Mumbo sauce or a half smoke?
Half smoke.
Okay. So you know what both those things are.
I do. Yeah.
I had to Google DC food, and I'm like, if she's going to be like, what are you talking about? Okay. And I know it's not really, one's a sauce and one's an actual food product, but okay. For those watching, if you don't know, that's apparently two DC staples. Is that correct?
Honestly, I don't think half smokes are a DC staple. There are a lot of half smoked places, but I wouldn't call that DC food.
Okay.
So,
that's what Google told me, and I blame Google completely for telling me that's what it is. Okay, good. So Washington Commanders or Washington Nationals?
The Nationals, the Nats.
Okay. Last one. Ready?
Yeah.
Answering an RFP or a stick in the eye?
Oh, anything in the eye. Anything. I'd rather eat glass.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I was hoping you'd go somewhere there. Yep. Okay. Those are the rapid fire. See, not hard.
Not so bad.
All right, cool. So we want to get into the agency, into Williams Whittle, and definitely your podcast, the book club, two of the things I want to get into. But before we do, for folks watching, how about a little bit about your background? Have you always been in advertising?
No, I have had the advertising client advertising sandwich, and I'll explain.
Okay, cool.
So I started in advertising 30 years ago at Gray Advertising in LA. I went through their account management training program.
Oh, cool.
And after several years, they actually moved me to the San Francisco office. And from there, I worked in San Francisco. I worked at a variety of boutique agencies. And that was starting to be in the height of the .com craze, right? And so I realized that I needed technology experience. So I bumped over client side because there were jobs like there was no tomorrow. And I worked client side for many years as director of marketing for a bunch of different .coms. I did not make the millions that they promised I would make. I did make a lot of money during that time, however. But I did meet my husband. So that was a good consolation prize. And so he ended up moving to Washington, D.C., and I was able to get a client to relocate me to D.C. as well. Sold my place in Pacific Heights, which still hurts me to this day. So then after after I had, we had three kids. They're now teenagers, and after I had kids, or as soon as I had kids, I really moved back to advertising pretty quickly after that.
Okay.
So it was kind of the middle of my career, which was the inside of the sandwich, and then got back into advertising once I had kids, and I've been there ever since, quite happily on the advertising side.
Okay, nice. Give us, and then we're going to go back into kind of ice-breaking territory, the craziest, weirdest, or oddest thing that a client ever requested or did. And we can certainly keep this anonymous.
But that's a hard one because there's so many.
Yeah.
And most of these stories you can never tell, right?
Well, I was going to say, can we tell these? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I think I have one that I can tell that's quite entertaining. And that story is for a client that I had on the West Coast. It was a Department of Environmental Services account, and they wanted to promote the usage of ultra low flush toilets.
Okay.
Benefits of ultra low flush toilets, of course, generating less water, which in turn is better for the environment, etc. But in order to demonstrate that fact, they wanted us to use a live owl in the spot. So the TV spot literally had a toilet with an owl on top of it to demonstrate how less water usage benefits wildlife and nature.
Okay.
That's my story.
And it was a live owl.
It was a live owl that had a handler and everything. And I have pictures and a TV spot of an owl on a toilet.
Interesting. Yeah, that would be, and there was no incidents. Owl behaved itself.
No owls were harmed in the filming of that commercial.
Because some owls can get huge, and the claws. I'm like, you're gonna need a handler. Okay, exactly. I like it. Cool. Well, let's talk about the agency. And first of all, is it 55 years old?
That's correct. 55 years old. 1967 was the birth of Williams Whittle.
Crazy impressive. And full service, is that correct? Is that how you describe?
Full service advertising, that's correct.
Tactically, okay. And then talk about the focus, because, pulling from the site, and I'm quoting, working with nonprofits and forward-thinking companies dedicated to making a positive impact, correct?
Yeah, so in 2013, Rob Whittle, our CEO, evolved the company to focus on nonprofits because we had some pretty historical case studies that were really strong in that realm with the USO and with American Red Cross. And so he switched over back then in 2013, and we've been nonprofit ever since. And of course, we're calling it forward-thinking companies because it's really companies that demonstrate, for which we need to demonstrate some sort of positive impact. So that could be anything from, reducing landfill waste to preserving parks land to, eliminating, disease prevention, disaster preparedness, support services for military and vets, and those sort of things. Okay.
And that's interesting. What I hadn't realized is that you hadn't always been nonprofit focused, and you all do a really nice job for any agencies watching. If you go on the site, on Williams Whittle's site, in terms of the work setup, I think you all do a nice job of that and immediately know your focus. So, which is, from the business development standpoint, which is what I do.
Thank you, Lee. You get a grade.
Right? That's what we're always looking at, right? Yeah. Hi. Good grade.
Okay.
And then staff-wise, how big are you all?
Well, we're less than 20. Less than 20 of us. So nice. We're pretty small, but the areas of expertise are very high. The people that we work with all have specific areas of expertise with regards to nonprofits. So that's everything from a media planner and buyer who specializes in the nonprofit world and is able to negotiate anywhere from 25 to 70% off rate card. Digital people who are able to manage Google grants for nonprofits, PSA director and media outreach people so that manage our PSA campaigns, because that's a big part of our business as well. And of course, creative teams that have decades of experience in storytelling for nonprofits.
Nice. Yeah. And I think these days, two things. One, it's just funny. I'll ask that question sometimes in terms of just staff wise, and I'll get answers like, there's like 70 of us, we're kind of small. And I'm like, well, that's not that small. I'm like, so everyone thinks about it different, but I think that, you all just kind of that lean and mean.
Very lean, very mean.
I think a lot of clients are looking for that these days, right? I mean, they don't want the giant red tape and everything that can come with larger firms. That's not a knock on larger firms, or maybe it is, but I think I definitely we see with our own clients a lot more, our own agency clients, a lot more of their prospects that kind of want to work with agencies your size. So I always think it's interesting. So in terms of, and this is the put you on the spot, but when we work with our clients, one of the things we always want to get out, what is that main point of difference? And sometimes that can be like an elevator pitch, but in 2 or 3 sentences, what would you say is your all's main point of difference if you had to say one thing?
Well, we pretty much talked about it, and that's really the focus on the nonprofit vertical.
Okay.
And within that vertical, there's several other industries that we specialize within nonprofits. And so you'll see on our website that we have a lot of experience in healthcare, military veteran, social impact, and what's the last one? Green marketing.
Yeah.
So those are the core 4 areas where most of our clients fall into. And so our services and everything we have built within the agency is focused on those key services and things that nonprofits need. And there's 3 key things that we do for nonprofits, 3 fundamental services, and one is branding. So obviously anything from, a rebranding or a brand refresh, brand identity standards, brand architecture, that sort of thing, to storytelling. Storytelling is a huge component of our business where we're kind of like working with our clients to come up with their brand story.
Okay.
And, that is always a fun, creative thing to do, to make sure that we're telling a story that has an emotional hook to it, that has,
Sure.
a problem that needs to be solved in a way for people to become involved with that particular nonprofit. And then activation is the last one. And that really is what it sounds like, that we're, really marketing your mission through paid, earned, and owned media. And then we're directing people to take some form of action. And the 3 key actions are to donate or support, to learn more, or to increase or create awareness.
Okay. Yeah. And I thought it was very, well, you don't need me to tell you that it was smart, but I think, a lot for agencies watching out there and even marketers, one of the things that agencies will struggle with in terms of what they're going after, let's say it's a particular vertical, for example, which happens a lot, right? But they never really think about some of those, for lack of a better word or terminology, say that twice, some of those sub verticals. And as I was looking, on the site and seeing these different, it's not just nonprofits in that sense. It's green, as you said, it's military vets, and they're not necessarily direct natural extensions from nonprofit, but it's interesting how it all is of a piece, within what you all are doing. And I think, again, agencies watching now, these are the kind of things you need to think about, because sometimes they get stuck on, well, we do this, and what else can we be going after? It's like there's probably quite a bit you could be going after where your story
it opens it up much more.
Naturally extends.
Thinking about green, it's not just nonprofits, it's organizations who are doing things related to that. So the Parks Channel, for example, is a client.
Yeah.
They're a new website and potential TV channel that's going to that provides information on how to trip planning tools and to travel to the national parks.
Nice.
Well, that's a very related green marketing type organization that is not a nonprofit.
Right. And so how did you all, for folks watching, how did you all come to those? Was it just something you all were passionate about, or did it kind of naturally flow from the work you had been doing and you kind of got into it?
Well, it absolutely naturally flew and naturally came through what we were already doing. Military vet is a historical area. Healthcare is historical areas. Those 2 areas we really had done well in the decades that we have been as an agency. But social impact is relatively new. A lot of people play in that arena. There's a lot of competitors that we have in that arena, but that's a huge opportunity area, if you wish. And then, of course, green, because we do have a lot of clients related to green marketing, recycling clients, parks preservations, conservation, those sort of thing. That was a relatively new one that we've really been tapping into as well.
Okay. And looking at some of the work, I can partially answer this question, but we're here to interview you. So we'll say from a geographical standpoint, your clients, it's not, even though there's a ton in your backyard, obviously, especially given the space that you play in. But is it a good bit of regional work, or is it really more national in scope in terms of your clients?
Well, it's hard to answer because every nonprofit in the country is based in Washington, D.C.
I was gonna say exactly. Right.
Same with every
It's all in your
association.
backyard. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the natural place to be for what we do.
Sure.
So, truthfully, most of our clients are here, but we do have clients that are, of course, national and other locations.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. And then let's jump into what I had mentioned in the beginning of this, that you all truly kind of personify if an agency is looking to do really solid content over multiple platforms, go to the Williams Whittle site and go check out what Kelly's doing and her team. And that's one of the reasons I said I wanted to get her on. And let's jump into that, because agencies struggle with this, right? And because it is, and we know it as well. It's tough to keep content going. But wow, when you do, that ongoing awareness for the agency and then the expertise, even more important, just it continues to develop, and prospects obviously can see that. So across social platforms, on your blog, great stuff. But what I wanted to get into, two specific things, and first is that Williams Whittle Media Club. That's pretty unique. I mean, for an agency, tell us about that. How did it start, and I guess why did you start it?
Sure. I definitely want to talk about our new business tools as well, but we'll start with the Media Club.
Sure.
I like to read. I love to read. And
Me too.
I'm obsessed with business books, especially business books that impact marketing in some way, shape, or form. So I've always been reading. And so in the spring of 2020, when really I seemed to have a little bit more time, or a lot more time, because I wasn't commuting 45 minutes to an hour each way at work, I had more time to read.
Right.
And so I took it's called the Book a Week Challenge, where you literally read a book a week for 52 weeks. And I did that in 2020 through 2021 and completed that challenge and kept going. Cool. And then I expanded it to be documentaries and videos and podcasts and other forms of media. And so when you go to the Williams Whittle Media Club, which is on our website, and you'll see it on our website, basically what it is in essence kind of like book reviews. So I'm pulling in, if you want to read XYZ book, and you can check any of the 80 that are there to see if there's one that you are interested in reading. I'm going to give you a quick recap of what the book is about. And in social media, we add in what kind of the top quotes of that particular book and what I think are the most important insights and wows from reading those books that will impact our business in some way, shape, or form. So really it was kind of taking my own personal passion and saying, hey, other people would be interested in this as well. Let me share it with others. And it's been great, because I've been able to connect with authors. I'm LinkedIn friends with Daniel Pink now, for example. And cool. I have authors that reach out to me to and send me books to do book reviews, for example. So it's kind of like a personal passion that became something I can use professionally. And I love talking about books. So it's a good topic point.
That's awesome. Yeah, anytime you're creating content like that, certainly you want to do that from a business development perspective. But I think it's interesting that, it really came from, as you said, your passion, versus like a blog, for example, or something that's maybe more traditionally thought of as business development. Sure. I don't know any other agency doing that right now. You may, but I just think that's no one else do it. If you're watching, don't start now, because Kelly's already got it.
You're 80 books behind.
Right. You can try. But I think, and we will have links to all of these things we're talking about on your site for folks watching, so you can get there easily. So I love that. I want to get into the podcast, but you mentioned if there's other business development pieces.
So I'll just want to talk about the 3 that we do every year.
Yeah, please.
And again, a lot of this started to happen during the pandemic, where we had a little bit more time and had a chance to think about. But everything we do has a component of research, and we have a fantastic research director in Karen Beck. And so we started doing in 2020 an annual donor survey to really, and it's a survey of, hundreds of people across the country who, to ask basic habits. What types of organizations and charities are you donating to? How often? How are you donating to them? What sort of media do you do you watch TV? Do you watch radio? All those basic types of things to kind of help our clients to make sure that their fundraising are a lot more targeted. And we're able to break that down by demographic, et cetera. So that's, we have our third year of our donor survey, and
Cool.
I released it this week. I haven't even posted it on LinkedIn yet. So that's found on our website. And then we compare the results year over year so you can see different shifts. So for example, during the pandemic, the number one cause that people cared about the most was poverty and human services. And that's been closely followed since then because by health charities. Now we're starting to see some other organizations like environmental. Environmental was kind of just not there in 20 and 21. Now seeing it having a little bit more of an impact. Military veterans charities are starting to come back up again. But of course, COVID knocked everything off the charts. And so it really became a different focus. People were worried about the economy. People were worried about their health. So that's why you start to see some of these changes in our surveys. So that's the first survey that we do. The second survey that we do, and this is our 10th or 13th year doing it. It's our annual survey of PSA directors. And we reach out to PSA directors across the country, TV and radio, and ask them, what types of PSAs are you guys running right now? What categories are most interesting to you? How many do you receive a week? Which ones get the most attention? Which months do you have the greatest availabilities for PSAs? And so this is valuable insight for us to help being to target our PSA campaigns. And the third one is relatively new because I have 3 teenage sons, and that's the Generation Z survey. And the Gen Z survey, we just completed our second survey that's going to launch in the next couple of weeks, and that asks basic media habit questions of Generation Z. And it will tell you things like Generation Z does not read email. Email marketing will not work for Gen Z. So college, kind of need to look at that, for example. So there's all sorts of valuable tidbits there for Gen Z as well. And then we've written a PSA guide to everything to know about PSAs. If you want to learn about PSAs, that's on the website. And I have several other projects in the queue that I'm working on now. So
love it.
I always want to be pushing something out. I use these as new business and also, of course, for leads. And I use it for existing clients.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was just going to ask those last two. Maybe you just answered me. Well, you have the guide. I was going to ask, are you releasing the findings of those? Yes. Those last two as well. And so you are incorporating that. I mean, of course you are into business development.
Absolutely.
And I'm guessing just having it exist, and even from an SEO standpoint, all those benefits are going to be there. Yeah, that's impressive. I did not know about the last two that y'all are doing that. So we'll get that links to that as well. And I can concur. So my 2 kids is 19 and a 15-year-old. My son, who's 19, as I said, I have to text him to get him to read the email I sent him. So it's like,
yeah, and then
I sent you an email, you have to read it.
Bruh.
Exactly. He's like, oh, sorry. I'm like, it's fine, whatever. We'll figure it out one way or the other. So he's a good kid, but I have had to do that several times. So let's get into the one other thing that I mentioned.
My other passion project.
Yes. So that is the podcast. And so correct me, when I wrote these questions up not very long ago, but I think at that point, 36 episodes in, or are you now?
37 this week.
37. Love it.
Close.
And 2+ years so far?
Again, started the media club and the podcast at the same time. I started working on them in spring of 2020, but we didn't launch. We got 6 podcasts in the can before we launched in October of 2020.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's a good call. So 2 Marketing Moms. That is the name of the podcast. Again, we'll have links. So I love this idea. I've watched several of the episodes in pieces, a couple of them fully. But you have a co-host, and I'll stop talking. Tell us about it and what that's doing for you.
So we both have teenagers, right? And in 2020, the teenagers that graduated from both high school and college did so online. They weren't able to, walk across the stage. And a lot of those who graduated college at that time had job offers and had them rescinded because of what happened in 2020. Yeah. And I just thought, gosh, are things going to change? Is it going to be like this for when my kids graduate? And how are these kids going to have the knowledge that they could get from an internship? And how can I provide that? How can I help? And so I, thought about it, and I got together with a former president of Williams Whittle, Julie McDowell, who runs an agency called 5 Ones. And between us, Julie and I have 6 kids, 2 dogs, and 50 years of advertising and marketing experience. And so what we did is we really spent a lot of time thinking about the types of topics that we wanted to do and who we wanted to reach. And the podcast is targeted at young marketing and advertising professionals. And we talk about the struggles, the fails, the wins that we had while experiencing our own careers. And the idea is that we wanted to give those tips and tricks and advice to people to help them navigate the industry. I'm just going to tell you a little story that made a lot of sense to me, that it kind of is some of the rationale behind why I did this. Yeah. My mother has macular degeneration, which is, just basically can't see, and it's not a solvable problem. She is also a triathlete. She's 80 years old, and she runs bikes and swims, and has done the Ironman many years, and likes to continue but likes to continue to ride her bike. But that makes it very difficult to ride your bike when you can't really see. And so what her friends did for her is they would ride their bikes together, and they would go one in front and one behind, but the one in front would go ahead, and they had orange spray paint, and they would spray paint around the potholes so that my mother wouldn't fall into them.
Oh my gosh, it's so awesome. That is really cool.
To me, I see this podcast as a way of me spraying spray paint around the potholes, because I don't want people to make, especially young women, to make the same mistakes that I did early in my career. And so by telling the stories in the podcast, that will help do that. So some sample topics that we have are how to be a great account manager, advancing your knowledge in advertising, new business, how to stand out, managing up, which is a big one, how to develop your personal brand, which is our top podcast, future-proofing your career.
Nice.
And then I like to have fun and have a little bit of sarcasm too. And so one of the podcasts is called How Women Can Grow Balls in Business. And, that's a provocative topic, but it's for an important one, because it's really how do women demonstrate strength at work in order to, and forcefulness to advance their career without being called the B word, because that happens a lot. And so that's what that expert episode talks about. And the huge process of starting and launching a podcast and sustaining it for 2 years was a total trial and error process for Julia and I. We had never done it before. We learned kind of on the fly. We did everything inexpensively. It's not just, what topics are you going to cover, who are you interviewing, technology problems, what sort of lighting and microphone and those sort of things that do you need, but, how there's money and effort and everything involved in that. Yeah. So, I see it as my personal passion project that I could do through retirement. I plan on not retiring anytime soon, but it's something that I could continue to do. And so it really, in my mind, helps young women to hopefully get a leg up in the industry and hopefully learn from my mistakes.
I think it's amazing. And you all do have a really nice chemistry. Male, female, it's a podcast well worth watching, because you all are also, as you said, engaging. But they're important topics too, and I think I wholeheartedly recommend folks jump in. And again, we'll have those links. And again, just like the book club, not a lot of similar type podcasts out there. So kudos for sticking with it, and that leads to the next question, which, especially during COVID, right? A lot of agencies, we have this time now. Let's do something like this. And a lot of it was, let's start a podcast. And and this is not a knock on those folks, but for a lot of those agencies, if you go to their site now, the same 2 episodes they did are still sitting 2 years later, on their site. And it is hard. So it's not a knock, but if there's one piece of advice, and it doesn't just have to be one, but that you could give to an agency on either how to start, just bump my microphone, how to start, or especially kind of maintain that podcast. I mean, anything that's really, other than obviously the drive and that you love it, that you could give them any advice?
Sure. I mean, I think there's a stat out there that on average, there are only 6 episodes of most podcasts.
Okay, so that is the actual average. Okay.
That's the actual number, and even a magic number just to get past 6. And
Wow.
frankly, that's why we waited to have 6 in the can before we launched, because you're supposed to have at least 5 in the can and be ready to go before
That was the magic number. Okay.
Before you start. I get requests all the time from clients and non-clients asking me that very question, and my response is kind of like, okay. I know, everyone's enthusiastic about podcasting, but here's the reality. It's not something that you can just dip your toe into. You have to go all in because it's high maintenance, and you have to commit to a regular schedule. And here's the reality. I spend nearly every weekend on the podcast. And I still haven't explored how to monetize it because I just haven't had time to figure out how to do that.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, interesting.
So I haven't had time to do that. And so, here's the questions. Do you have an extra 10 to 15 hours a month in your life to be able to work on the podcast? Because even though I'm just in essence recording, there's a lot of other elements. I mean, I hire someone to do the editing. I hire someone to do the social media, but your involvement, you have to be involved in it because it's yours. It's your baby. So it's oversight of the editors editing the podcast version, the audio, editors auditing the YouTube video, drafting and editing the social media posts, audiograms, video clips, episode transcripts, blog posts, of course, topic creation, episode notes, interview scheduling and coordination. And by the way, do you have an extra $600 to $1,500 a month in your pocket to pay to do that?
Wow. Yeah. Do you, and I know the answer because you have co-hosts, you're both doing this together. Do you love that? I mean, do you think for people doing it, does it kind of make it easier to play off each other, to kind of divide and conquer maybe in terms of how you prepare?
Yes. Definitely. I think having a co-host really, really helps because hopefully you both have different skill sets. Even though Julie and I have very similar areas of expertise, we have different things that we like to do. And so that makes it helpful to say, you do this and I'll do that. And so that, you can definitely divide and conquer that way, but it's not a minor amount of work. And it's not just about the recording the podcast. It's fun to get to that point where you're actually recording it and then you're done recording it, but then the real work happens. You got to edit it. You got to get it out there. You got to market it. You got to promote it. And that's continuous. And, you promote each. We used to do 2 podcasts a month, if you can believe it.
Wow.
Now doing only 1 a month. So, 37 in the can now. I have some ideas about where I want to take it in the future and other topic areas that I'm excited about. But I'm going to keep going. Awesome. Please do. Yeah, it really is impressive. We're down to our last question. Great. It's going fast. And this one is because we do push this out to our agency search side, our sister company, and that's all to marketers. So we like to throw out one question or along those lines. And so I'll throw it out to you. And that's this: if you could give one piece of advice to, let's say, a VP of marketing is sitting behind me, for example, what piece of advice would you give to a marketer to make agency relationships more effective? As an agency lead, we like to see it as a partnership. We want to be known as an extension of your own marketing team. Yeah. And we like to be treated as such. We don't want to be treated as a vendor. We want to be treated as a partner. And we feel at Williams Whittle, I feel personally that my client's business is my business, and I'm just as passionate about it as they are. I may not have as great of knowledge in specific areas, but I need to, and I want to be passionate about it. And I want to make sure that they are successful, because if they are successful, I am successful. Right. So I think the partnership part of it is, and seeing your agency as a partner. If you don't think your agency is a partner, then it's probably not a fit. Right. Oh, I like that. Yeah. I do hope that is really a part of any new client that I want to work with is some form of, strong partnership and achieving a goal together. Clients can tell
right? If you don't have, and not that you're passionate every second of the relationship when you're there, but they can tell overall, because it comes into with our own reports, marketers that are telling us the reasons why they look for a new agency. That's part of it, where they're just kind of order takers. I'm not seeing that kind of passion because they're not bringing us really anything, in any sense that's new, or that kind of research that you all do that is invaluable, that takes effort. You have to go the extra mile. We can use all the cliches we want, but at the end of the day, truly, they can tell. And so kudos to you all for putting forth that effort for your own selves too, right? As an agency. Yeah. And we're done. We're done. That was cool.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for being here. For everyone watching, again, look at all the links. And Kelly, if there's anything else that you would want anyone to know, or have we covered the bases in terms of what you all are doing? The podcast, blog, book club.
WilliamsWhittle.com, 2marketingmoms.com are the two key URLs for what we do. And any ideas on additional surveys, happy to take any input.
Love it. All right. Well, Kelly, thanks so much for being here.
No problem. Take care.
All right. Thanks.